Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome from wherever you're joining today. My name is Susan, and I'm joined by Dexibit founder Angie Judge. Welcome, Angie.
Hi, Susan.
Today, we are going to be talking all about adding and editing live data directly in Dexibit. We're really excited to share this new functionality with you. But to begin with, I will take you through a quick intro to Dexibit for anyone that may be new here. So if you're new, we do data analytics specifically for visitor attractions. This is for both cultural and commercial organizations. Our mission is to democratize data, and we do that by bringing together all sorts of data from around the visitor's experience in your venue's operations. So things like footfall ticketing, CRM, point of sale, e-commerce, social web, weather, and so much more. I'll go ahead and share my screen now to show you what that looks like in the product. So here's Dexibit. It's software as a service. You can invite anyone that you'd like, so as many users as you'd like, and you can build dashboards, reports, insights, and forecast, which you can then turn into scheduled email reports at a click of a button. In Dexibit, we have an extensive library of visualizations. To add one to your dashboard, you can simply search for the topic you're looking for and click Add to add it in. And this is an example dashboard, so you can see lots of different data coming together in these visualizations to get everything from very high-level data right down through to the very detailed data. So I'll hand it over to Angie now, who will take us through adding and editing data in Dexibit.
Thanks, Susan. I'm super excited to talk about adding and editing data. And because while everything that we try and do is very much with live data in Dexibit, there's always spreadsheets and there's always manual data, and there's lots of different circumstances where an integration isn't the right solution or isn't the right solution first. And so having a great way to solve for those sorts of data sets is really important to bringing all data equally together, regardless of where it comes from. So to give you an example of a couple of moments where this is going to be super useful for you and your team. The first one is for data like that is captured manually in the first place. So an example of this would be if you're running a click account, maybe you're doing that as part of your day-to-day operations, either on your perimeter or thresholds within your location. Or maybe you're just doing a temporary click account to help you quality control and audit some of your existing footfall cameras. So that would be an example of data that's being captured manually in the first place. The second one would be where your data is considered to be one-off data, such as manually recorded transactions. So that might be just one day when your system was offline, or maybe some data that you have that's low frequency data, like your annual financial plan that you put together, annual budgets that you want to upload in. The third situation could be where your data is managed by a third party, and if that third party doesn't support automation to otherwise get that data integrated. So an example of that could be something like a food and beverage revenue share partnership. If you've got like a local cafe and maybe they don't have a top line point of sale system that can integrate in with a system like Dexibit, it might just be that they're going to provide you with a summary of the day's transactions and revenue for your share splits. So that would be an example of data coming from a third party who don't support automation. And then the fourth one is an example of an older data set that maybe you need a home for it. A really common one of this is that you've upgraded your ticketing system and you need somewhere for your legacy ticketing data to live. And you want to bring that together in a way that you've got your old data and your new data together in a single domain so that you can manage them for things like year-on-year insights and so forth. And the last situation is maybe when you're working with a new data set for the first time and it's this sort of stepping stone to automating it later on and deciding what to do with it then. So that would be an example of where maybe you might do an upload in the first instance and then maybe think about integrating something a little bit later. So lots of different situations where this can be super useful. So let's dive into the product and we'll have a look at this functionality to see what this cycle looks like. I'm going to share my screen here. So traditionally, if we are integrating data into Dexibit, we might start off in the data platform to be able to connect our integrations through. And then once we have connected data, it becomes visible to us in the Data Explorer. So this is very much behind the scenes. It's not our nice front-end dashboards that are in reports that are shared with users. This is the area of Dexibit here where your data administrators and system admins and all of your sort of technical stakeholders might reside. And so once a data set is integrated into Dexibit, you can see it occurring here. We can open it up, let's say ticketing, for example. We can see all the attributes that are in that ticketing system and some information about the data itself. And we can come down to the point of controlling every single one of these attributes of how it's described and how it's calculated and everything else. So that's traditionally what this Data Explorer space is for. But it's also the place where you can come in and upload your data. And you'll see here a button on the top right. And this is a place where you can come in to manually add your data if you'd like to do it yourself. Now, if you're going through, say, an onboarding phase with Dexibit and you've got a lot of data to bring in, you might lean on us to do this for you, but you can also go ahead and do this independently. And you'll see we're presented with three options of how to essentially create a data set from uploading data. The first one is that we create this data set brand new. It's just shaped however our spreadsheet is shaped, and we're going to go ahead and define that. The second one is that we're going to create this data set off of a template. So this is following sort of a Dexibit prescribed structure of what this data should look like, where we are suggesting this is how the columns you should have in your spreadsheet say, and this is how they should be formatted. This can be really useful where you want to import things in really quickly and you don't want to sort of go through some extra clicks to be able to work with data in whatever format you happen to have it. And then the third option here is to update a data set, and this is where we've got an existing data set and we're uploading data into it. Now, to do an upload, you need to be able to, and the same when we get into live editing data, this needs to be a data set that has previously been an upload itself. So you can't sort of go into an integration like a ticketing integration and then just be uploading data on top of what's coming in through the integration. So to preserve the integrity of that data, you have a lock to say any sort of data that's an integration pack is going to stay with the data that we're getting live from the vendor. If you're going to be updating a data set, this needs to be a data set where you've previously created it through an upload and you're just adding more uploads into that data set. If you want to combine the two, so say you have your ticketing integration from your ticketing vendor that's locked, and then you've also got your maybe some adjustments that you want to provide in because you've made some changes to your ticketing data retrospectively, and you want to sort of reflect that in your analytics, what you can do is do your integration pack, create a separate data set for your adjustments, and then combine the two into a derived data set, which will then reflect into your ticketing domain, which then you can maybe have your adjustments cancel out some of your raw data from your integration. So a few different options there. But let's start off with something simple. I want to create a new data set. So I'm going to click on this option. Now, this will open me up a bit of a wizard to give me a step-by-step experience. You can upload data from a CSV or Excel. We recommend starting with a CSV format, just a little bit more stable in terms of all of the different formatting that can happen here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is to give my data set a name. I'm going to call it education program. And the second thing that I'm going to do is to come in here and give my data set a description. Now this is sort of like maybe some context for people who are looking at this data for understanding where it's come from and things like this. So I might say something like manually recorded education visits by local schools with data collected on behalf of our state authorities or something like that. This data is updated, oh, I can't spell, updated once a month. And then next we're going to click to upload or drag and drop our data. And remember, this was CSV data on top of here. So I've just got a spreadsheet that I've prepared earlier, and I'm just going to drop that down here. And you can see it's automatically moved me through to the next page. So I just dropped in my CSV file of some of my pretend education data here. Now, a couple of words of warning when you are dropping in a file, whether that's a CSV or something else, on two things. The first is you'll need to have a unique identifier in your data set. So this is a column, which is like a reference field or an ID field that recognizes each row. It can be as simple as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or it might be something like a ticket ID or a member ID or a reference ID or something like that. So I've got a unique identifier, a booking reference in my data, which is a column where each booking reference is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, etc. So each one of them is unique. And when we come to do the field mapping here in our next step, it's asking me to identify which one of these columns is that unique identifier. And the reason why we use this is because we want to acknowledge each row of data and identify it separately. If your data set doesn't have unique identifiers, just add it into the spreadsheet if you'd like. The next thing that it's going to ask me to do is to identify the type of data for each one of these fields. And this is going to control what the user can then do with that data later on. So I'm going to choose, for example, that my date of visit, which is one of my columns, is a date, a calendar date field. Now, this is the second thing to be aware of when you're importing data in, that when you're working with calendar dates, we want you to work with a particular format of year, month, and day, so that we can automatically recognize those dates through. So just something to be aware of. One, have that unique identifier, and two, make sure that your dates have a good format there. So we're just going to go through and choose the formats for each of these different attributes. Now, you'll see I'm choosing text for most of them. This is because if I've got like a field or a column saying this is my state or this is my city, it's just a bunch of text, bunch of plain words. When I come down to this particular column here, I've got my number of students, my number of educators, and my number of support people that are coming through with each one of these education reservations in my pretend data. And so here I'm going to choose number or integer. This is to say that this here is the actual data that I can plot and I can average and I can sum and things like that. And then this last one, education program, I'm going to end with text. A couple of other options that I've got here. So I've got my text, my number, my date that we covered. I could have an exact date time stamp if I had like down to the minute or second. I might have some decimals. These are great, of course, for currency. So if something is $54.23, for example. I can have something called a Boolean value. So this is whether something is true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1. So things like is member, yes. I can have a blob, which isn't as bad as it sounds. This is something like some data that might be something like an image or an attachment. I can have a unique identifier, and this is a particular type of reference or ID number that follows a particular format. So only use this one if you know specifically that your identifiers are UUID types. I can have a list of items. So for example, in my education data, this might be something like the list of education resources that are being assigned to this reservation. Maybe I've got an overhead projector and a television that's on wheels and some other bits and pieces that I'm going to use. And then lastly, you've got some structured data options here around key value pairs, and this is just for some more technical options here. So once I've finished mapping all my fields here, I've chosen my unique identifier. I've gone through and assigned types to all of these different fields so that we know what they are, what our users should be able to do with them. I click next at the bottom. And so here we can just see a confirmation. My file is called Education Program Data, CSV. It's looking good. I've selected yes. The first line of my spreadsheet, first row, includes my field names because my spreadsheet's got column headers on it. And I can click continue. So now in a couple more screens, it's going to show me some samples of my data. So just so that I can see here what those look like and just make sure everything's looking okay. I'm really happy with those. So I'm just going to skip over this and click continue. And here I see actual raw samples of what that spreadsheet looks like. And you can see here it says no errors detected. Now this might come up and give me a red or a yellow warning. Maybe, for example, if I had 60.5 students and I've selected that this is a number, so it needs to be a whole number. So I can't have 60.5 students because we can't have half a human. And so what it will do is flag this to say this is red and an error has been detected, or yellow, and it will also flag the cell and highlight the cell to say this cell is red or the cell is yellow, that I need to pay it some attention here. And if I like, I could filter down to just the rows of my spreadsheet that have got problems. And I can actually just live edit this data in here if I needed to change my 60.5 students to 61, for example. And then I would be good to keep on going. So I can actually make changes as I'm uploading something, and it's automatically detecting those errors. But my data is all looking good, so I'm going to keep going to say that it's all done. So it's available to view and query, and anything up to a couple of minutes, depending on how big this data set is. So let's click here to navigate to this data set. We can see that loading here on our screen. So as you can see, it's going to take a moment for my data to load. So in the interim, here's one I've prepared earlier. So I can open this data set up by clicking the ... menu at the top right of the data set and clicking edit data set here. Now here I can control what this should be called. It's alias that I should be able to reference this data set as. I'm happy with the name that I gave it earlier, and my description that I gave it, which I'm happy with. But again, I could make some changes there if I wanted to. And I can see all of the different attributes here. Now, you'll notice that I've actually already added in my descriptions for each one of these. But if I was loading in a new data set, they might not have those descriptions. So it might just sort of look like this, where my attribute has just got a name and the description is the same as that. So here I can come in and click ... edit on each one of these data attributes, and I can control whether this attribute is visible or not visible. It's sometimes worthwhile to hide attributes if I've got too many that aren't useful for my users. And I can enter in a description here. So like where the school is located by town or city. And I can also make some other things if I want to add on a transformation. Say I had some people say NYC and some people say New York City, and I wanted to always make sure that it was New York City. I might want to add in a transformation and just change that metric up a little bit. So options there. I can also change that physical and logical type that we decided on, that text type that we decided on earlier. I've got the option to change that up if I need to. And I'm going to click save. So this is a step that you might like to do. You can see here now my attribute just changed there. This is a step that you might like to do after you load in a data set for the first time, is just make sure that those attributes are presented exactly how you like. This matters when you come in as a user to create dashboards or work with data and visualizations, that these descriptions flow through into the drop downs and they flow through into the data dictionary. So it's nice to have them all presented well. You can see here a school name that's missing here. So we'd say the name of the education institution that the reservation belongs to, or something like that. And we hit save. So now I can query or create visualizations for my data set here. So I can say select all from education program. And I'm just going to pull up 10 rows of this would be nice, and I'll hit play on that. And here you can see my data coming through that I just loaded in just before. Now, if I want to come into my dashboard to start creating some visualizations, unlike when I'm working with an integration pack, the first time that I load in data from a spreadsheet, my data won't show in the library as a pre-designed visualizations because it's brand new, unless I'm mapping it to a domain. So it's ticketing data and I'm mapping it into my ticketing domain, and therefore I would then have some ticketing visualizations. So in most cases, what I'm going to do is create new visualizations when I've got my new data set for the first time. This is just a one-off step. I don't have to do this every time I do a repeat upload. So if I'm uploading every week, I don't have to come back and do this. It's just that first time that I load in my data initially and create my data set. So I'm going to click the dot, dot, dot menu at the top right of the dashboard and select Create Dashboard Item. I'm going to come in here and choose what visualization I want. I want, in this case, let's say a categorical chart. I always like to add a categorical chart, maybe a time series. Pie chart's always popular, and maybe a summary sort of visualization like the one you see here on the left-hand side. Those are a good set. Maybe a list feed if I want something like what we've got down here on my data set. So clicking dot, 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 create dashboard item, choose the visualization, choose my data set. So it was called education, wasn't it? Here we go. And then give my visualization a title. So school visits over time, let's say. Give it a bit of description, which would go on the back of the visualization. And here we've got a stock standard visualization. I want to do a couple of things with it. I'm going to click the pencil item to edit the visualization. I'm going to choose how to plot this data. So I just want to count all of my records as my measures. I want to choose a date status. So I'm going to choose the booking date here. I want to choose, we said over time, didn't we? The date where my booking has been scheduled. And actually, I'm going to choose a date range going into 2025 because I can't remember what dates I've got on my data. And here we go. Let's go by week. So this is my number of school visits or school reservations and showing by week here. And now that I've got my visualization, I might like to tidy up some things like that back of card description here, but it's good to go on my dashboard, and I can even save it into my library so that it will come up when my users are searching for it. So this is just that extra step to turn that data set into the sort of semantic layer, so it shows in the visualization library so that your users can easily access it, and I can then go and add those other visualizations to other dashboards elsewhere, or just work with what I've got here. The next time that I want to upload my data, I just come back into the Data Explorer and I can click to upload and just update that data set. And I don't need to go through all that process of determining what the mapping is and going through and designing the data set attributes and then going through and designing the visualizations. That's just that one-off to establish that data set. But there's one more trick I want to show you, and that is that you can now live edit those data sets as well. So rather than keeping on uploading, if you've got a data set where you are wanting to update that every so often, or even that you're just managing that data in a spreadsheet, like if you're using a Click account, click ... on the top right hand side of that data set in the Data Explorer and click Edit Records. And this is going to show me that spreadsheet view that we were looking at of that data. And I can come in here and I can actually edit my data. So I might want to change some of this data. And I can also, like I would in a spreadsheet, maybe add some rows in. Maybe I want to, what have we got in here? Change my columns around and things like that. I can copy and paste my data to insert more data in. So I don't actually need to go through the whole uploading situation. I can just sort of live enter or copy and paste this data in, which is super cool and makes it really quick and easy. Say, for example, if I want to upload my food and beverage reported revenue each week, I can just quickly copy and paste that in. So this is a really nice, easy way to be able to manage data ongoing where that needs to happen in a manual fashion without getting into this heavy cycle of spreadsheet uploads. So it's super cool to be able to do that. And any data that you change here or create or upload in the backend will then automatically flow through into those visualizations that you created into your dashboards and things like that. Now, you might ask the question, well, what about security controls around that? If I right click on that click on that ... menu, I can see the history. And here I've got my audit log of who uploaded this spreadsheet and then what changes have been made to the data since then. And I can actually click to restore the last version of my data if I don't like some of those changes that have been made. So it provides that nice audited history and version control of the data set as well. So that's super fun. And that's that look at editing and adding and live editing data in Dexibit to get rid of spreadsheets. Back to you, Susan.
Thank you, Angie. We do have a question here. So I have survey data that I upload on a monthly basis. Do I need to upload it again and again with this new functionality, or can I just copy and paste it in the new data?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's really up to you on what's going to be easiest for you. You've got both options where you can keep uploading that spreadsheet by going back to the Data Explorer, hitting that upload data button, and then using that add data to dataset upload. Or you can just copy and paste or live enter the data straight into that spreadsheet view using the edit records option off the data set. Both are fine. Personally, I think sort of copying and pasting or live editing something through is a lot faster and easier. There's less steps involved. So I would probably lean more on that one than the other.
Great, thanks, Angie. And thank you everyone for joining today. I look forward to seeing you next month.
Thanks, everybody.